Hi, everybody. Landry Ethredge here with Ethredge Counseling Group. And I'm really excited to have Krista Morton here with SomaSonder. I met up with you, Krista, was it last week? And
Was.
I got to hear a little bit about what you do, and it was very mind-blowing, very interesting. And I got to hear about a lot of healing work that you're doing that I haven't really heard a lot about before.
Mhm.
It's probably been around longer and I'm just, out of the loop. But I'm really excited to chat with you today and hear a little bit more about your business and your work in the Charleston area. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was so lovely to meet you. And it's always great to share conversations like this. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your own healing journey. If
Yeah.
you're anything like me, I got into therapy. Most therapists get into therapy for a reason, right? Like
Right,
there was
right.
something personal about it that they wanted to figure out for themselves.
Mhm.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got started with Somas.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I definitely always say it's a pain to purpose journey. I mean, looking back over the course of my life, there were definitely signs and symptoms that something wasn't quite right, really for my whole life since I was an infant. There was a lot of signs pointing out there was an overwhelm or a toxicity in my nervous system, whether it was, panic attacks, light sensitivity, sensory issues, always getting injured as a kid growing up, and doing dance as like my main activity. And so that all kind of snowballed into college when I got diagnosed with Lyme disease and three autoimmune conditions and mold illness.
Wow. Wow.
So it was a lot all at once. And so I was sort of on track to be a professional dance instructor and performer. That's what I went to college for initially, my undergrad. And so it went from being really sort of athletic and training for, over 30 hours a week in this dance studio to fast forward a year and a half after that, it was a very big struggle to climb a set of stairs. And I personally experienced a lot of neurological symptoms with my illness. So I was experiencing not only the panic attacks and also the depression at that point, but also auditory hallucinations, insomnia, loss of function in my left hand, gut issues, you name it. I mean, I had, if you Doctor Google Lyme disease, I probably had every symptom in the book plus more. And
Sure.
it was a lot. And so I had tried like 7 doctors over the course of 5 years that couldn't give me answers. And my Lyme was so deep in my neurological system because I had had it for so many years, and a concussion was the tipping point for that to express itself, right? So another trauma to the nervous system is when everything finally spilled over and my body said enough's enough. And so traditional blood work wasn't getting me the answer. It wasn't showing active strands of Lyme because the Lyme disease wasn't in my bloodstream. It was in my neurological system. And so finally, as kind of like a last straw attempt, I mailed my DNA to a doctor in Melbourne, Florida, who ran something called bioresonance testing. And I said, what do I have to lose? I'm so sick.
What
I'm
else
going
is
to try
go
this.
try out everything. Try everything.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll just exhaust all of my options. And so I can remember she called me up and she said, I'm so sorry that nobody told you how sick you are with Lyme disease, 9 out of 10 bands of it in your neurological system. And so that started me on this journey of looking at American biological medicine, applied kinesiology, muscle testing. When I went to get treatment out at a clinic in Nashville, Tennessee, and that essentially is just looking at the body and resonating stressors and then remedies to neutralize. So that might be an herb, a homeopathy, an emotional based service, or some kind of acupuncture or pressure, as well as brain retraining to rebalance any of those infections and the organs that are taking the burden of that toxic load. So at that point, I said, I need to switch my career paths because this didn't happen to me for no reason.
Mm.
And that's when I shifted and went back to school and started working for a few functional medicine docs before deciding to branch off on my own. And that's where I am today, is doing a lot of those same practices in my private practice now.
What a powerful story. And you started off your story by mentioning this phrase that you
Mm,
said when I met with you last week,
yeah.
pain to purpose.
Hmm.
And I mean that's such an important, I think, aspect of processing through a trauma. I mean, you kind of
Mhm.
spoke about some specific traumas like the concussion
Yeah.
or all these other things, but like the trauma of the whole experience in
Yeah.
itself and how you've like created,
Mm.
you've kind of turned that into a business where you're helping
Mhm.
other people turn their pain into purpose as
Yeah.
well, in a sense. I made a few notes as you were talking. Um, um, Trauma to the nervous system. You've mentioned, you've kind of we're talking about the
Mhm.
nervous system. And I just always find that such an interesting topic because you can talk about the nervous system from like a mental health standpoint. And
Right.
um, I talk a lot with my own therapy clients about regulating the nervous system, but
Mhm.
it's also sort of like a medical side. You can be
Yeah.
about the medical side of the nervous system, which again just sort of
Yeah.
highlights how we are not just a brain, we're not just a
Mhm.
body. All of these things are
Yes.
so integrated. And it sounds like
Absolutely.
your work with your clients, you are kind of incorporating mind body connection.
Absolutely. Yeah. So everybody who works with us in some way, shape, or form, whether they're in, kind of like our big flagship program of continuing care, they're coming to us and they're like, we need all the bells and whistles. We've been suffering for a really long time and they want that jump start, or somebody's working with me more on an a la carte basis. The emotional piece is always brought in because I mean, I know that you must be super familiar with polyvagal theory, but it's like the
Yes.
body and mind are so inseparable. And when we look at studies that, look at Lyme disease, for example, that's just one bacterial example, but as a neurotoxin, we can see that symptoms that can look like schizophrenia or panic disorder or even anorexia can come as a result of Borrelia burgdorferi, which is the Lyme bacteria in the nervous system. And so knowing that it's like your body and your nervous system is like a bucket, and everything that starts to fill up that bucket might be a little bit of the bacterial, it might be a little bit environmental, emotional, and then eventually that tips over. And that's why doing, for somebody who's chronically ill, the both and approach, I like to say, because we're correcting some of the physiology, we're looking at any biochemical imbalances, and then we're also looking at, are there emotions that have overflowed, help to overflow that bucket, because that's one thing that we do have personal authority on right now while we're waiting for your chemistry to change, to help you regulate. And it's as well, it's like the body cannot heal in a state where it doesn't feel safe. So the sooner we can help you feel safe in your body, the sooner that the physical is going to realign and do that work.
Absolutely. Oh man, I love it. Yeah, I do EMDR.
Yeah.
So I was talking to some other EMDR therapists recently about managing chronic pain with EMDR. And you think of
Mhm.
EMDR as being something that you're usually you're using it around reprocessing a trauma or
Yeah.
an overwhelming experience in the past. And
Mhm.
something like chronic pain, you can't always take away the pain through
Yeah.
EMDR, but you can shift your relationship with the pain, and often
Mhm.
that shift in
Mhm.
relationship with the pain can decrease pain,
Yes.
which is so fascinating. So yeah,
Mhm.
what we have personal agency over now maybe your relationship with
Yes.
dysfunction, or however you might word that, and
Mhm.
support the person emotionally while these other more
Yeah.
biological things are kind of
Mhm.
um, taking shape.
Healing. Yeah. And even, I mean, I know even for myself, like EMDR has been something that's been life changing, because what I found out after the fact, once I, was kind of clear from Lyme and all these things, was that I was dealing with complex PTSD from the whole experience of just
Um,
years of this
yeah.
dragging on. And so EMDR was, I just wanted to kind of like share this, but EMDR was my like catalyst of getting over the final hurdle, of
Mhm.
really dealing with the disassociation from all of the trauma. And just like you're saying, shifting the relationship with the present pain, like shifting my relationship with my past experience of that pain was really powerful in just kind of like freeing me fully from the experience. So that was a really interesting discovery, is
Love
I think
that.
that we
I love
don't
that.
know how
Yeah.
much we disassociate when we're in chronic pain or discomfort. And sometimes it doesn't occur until after the fact that, oh my gosh, this is what I'm dealing with. It took my body a couple of very blatant flashbacks for me to go, oh my gosh, this is what's happening. So that has been a huge help
Yeah,
to
you
me.
had dealt with the health
Yeah.
concerns, but there was trauma
Mhm.
from going through that
Exactly. Yep.
health trauma. Yeah, 100%. Health anxiety and health trauma, health related PTSD is, I think, a lot more common than we realize. People don't really have the word to put to that sometimes. They don't really know that's what's happening themselves. But I want to go back to something you mentioned too. You mentioned bioresonance. You used the word resonance a few times.
Yes.
I was hoping you could explain that a little bit more. What is resonance or bioresonance? Yeah, I don't.
Testing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can have various forms of bioresonance testing. Some people call it bioemissions testing. Some people call it, muscle testing if you're doing it manually on the body. I have two ways of doing that for my clientele. The first way is by a machine called a bioresonance machine, a nonlinear system. And essentially, we're working with the energetic signature of healthy cell tissues, diseased cell tissues, pathogens such as bacteria, viruses, parasites, mold, toxins, like chemicals, allergies, things like that. So essentially, we know in nature, like take biochemistry, for example, we know we can write down, if you want to call it the quote unquote energetic signature, right? The biochemical equation to make up a particular thing. And so if we take the energy and we sort of put that in as like a barcode to scan, we take the DNA of a particular person's body, which holds all of the information of their unique genetic code, and we put it against that machine, we can scan, and it's a detection tool essentially. So we can see down to the DNA RNA level of what's going on, what's resonating in this particular cell tissue that is wreaking havoc on the body. Similarly, all of these, I don't know if there's video on this that we shared, but all of these are vial-based. They are vial-based energy signatures. So for example, if somebody's dealing with like infections in their gut and we want to look at parasitic activity, we can see if any of these resonate against the nervous system by holding them against the nervous system and seeing if their muscle tone goes weak. So when the body's in a nice strong state, right, our muscles should have good tone. And if we hold something against the body that is currently resonating as it's a weakening toxin, that muscle tone is going to drop or go away. It's going to weaken. And so very like inversely, we can take, for example, we can take a supplement and we can have that muscle be weak and we can say, does this help the muscle get stronger? Right. And we can say, oh, that's resonating against the nervous system. And so that's one way that we can customize a protocol rather than just putting somebody more so on a one size fits all approach. We can customize their healing process against the DNA. So that is what I mean by bioresonance testing. It's both on the machine and then it can be against the human body as well, depending on how a practitioner goes about it or what resources they have.
Yes. So I have had personal experience with the muscle.
Yes, muscle testing.
Muscle testing. It was absolutely mind-blowing. I did not know something like that was even possible. I didn't know our body responded in such a like one-to-one correlation like that.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who's like a little bit hesitant and who like hears the word energetic and thinks it's like too
woo? Yeah.
Too woo or too spiritual? Is that what that is? Or how would you sort of like?
Sure, yeah. So I think there's a lot of folks out there that might be more so approaching it as like they are like a surrogate of some kind of like spiritual download or information. That's not how I personally practice. I'm looking more at quantum physics and then the science of light particles, because essentially everything, all of these microorganisms that are in the vial or in your body, they have, again, going back to that energetic signature or that light signature. So I'm asking nothing else but the person's body, the person's DNA. Is this showing up, right? It's not me going, I'm getting this download for you, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if somebody is a little bit more lenient towards going like a more of a physical approach to detection and healing, that would be the sciences that I would take a look at. And in the same token, right, like, so any type of manual testing, it's going to be pretty, like the accuracy is going to be dependent on the skill of the practitioner and the environment that they create for the person who we're resonating with. Because if your nervous system doesn't feel safe, it's not going to be present and ready to open up for the testing. So that piece of it does make a difference. But I would say look at quantum physics, look at Rife technology, because really like Rife technology is ancient. It's very old. And there are particular techniques of muscle testing that are based upon Rife machines or bioresonance technologies. So the particular one that I use called bioemissions testing, it's under the CPK organization. It's designed off of machines like this to replicate the detection just in a faster, more customized way for the person. So if I'm working with somebody in person, I do prefer to use that method because it's faster.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there's sort of a little bit of a shortcut there. It's a little faster.
Exactly. It's just more efficient.
More
Yep.
efficient. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. What would somebody, how do you, or if somebody was interested in doing this, what is a session or a meeting with you look like?
Mhm.
What are you practically doing in a,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So right now I am, just to be totally transparent, looking for an office space.
Yeah, go ahead.
I thought I had one locked in and then it fell through, unfortunately, but, looking for an office space to offer in-person sessions again, we had to do a little transition on our location. And so there are a couple of different ways to get started if somebody wants to get started with me. The first way, if somebody's really chronically ill for a long time, I encourage them to go through, I call it our DNA testing onboarding process. And essentially that's 3 appointments. So the first appointment, we're going through a very in-depth health history together. We're spending time getting to know each other too, because, in order for me to put together the story of you essentially with your health and know what the best approach might be, I need to know the little intricacies of your experiences of the past and where you're at presently. So I take that hour to get to know somebody and really know their case. Session 2 is a 75-minute review of findings. So in between those sessions, I'm running the DNA testing detection. I will use the technology for that because I want them to have a very in-depth look, especially if they've been sick for a long time. And we think there are some complexities to their case. I will do that, and I'll do the muscle testing to curate their healing plan. So I'll make sure that everything lines up and we're taking the best approach for them. We do a 15-minute phone follow-up. And at that point, the client decides, do I want to keep working with Krista, or do I want to kind of try this on my own and maybe revisit, or this didn't really resonate with me at all and I don't want to keep working together? Because I think it's very important I know I personally invested thousands of dollars before I got to a point where I felt like this is my Cinderella protocol or Cinderella approach and relationship with the practitioner. I like to say you can, but you don't usually take somebody out on one date and ask them to marry you, right? So we want to kind of get to know each other.
Yeah, yeah. There's a little bit of a courtship happening here.
Exactly. There's like a little bit of getting to know yous.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's the first way. And that's what I recommend for folks who are like, I've been all over the place. I have no idea what's wrong with me. We need like the deepest dive possible. And some people's personality just want to know a lot of information as well. The second way to get started is just to do a basic clinical consult. And with that, we're detecting your top priority organs and protocols. We're also throwing in with both of those appointment types, food sensitivities that are bile-based. So that's fantastic for somebody who's like, I want to optimize my health.
And dietary and
exactly. Yeah. We're kind of picking out, like, if you want to call it your top hits, your priorities, but we're not taking a look at every little nitty-gritty thing. We're just really taking a basic look at what do you need now in this moment, which I think is sufficient for anybody to get started on their healing journey. And that is just a one-off appointment. Folks can book emotional healing sessions as well, a la carte. We do 20-minute tune-ups and then 50-minute more in-depth somatic parts integration is what we call it. It's based off of parts memory therapy developed by Dr. Jay Norix. And then we have a membership as well that folks can pop on. We do bi-weekly calls and we teach those limbic system exercises or the brain retraining for nervous system regulation specific to chronic illness, chronic pain, all of those things in that group so that folks can do it at home in between sessions. So
yeah,
it's a little bit, there's an a la carte option, then there's a little bit more in depth.
Different types of pain points.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm curious, what do people typically come to you struggling with? Like, with your own story, I was hearing, like you said, auditory hallucinations, panic attacks, a bunch of different things. What are people coming to you with their symptoms usually starting?
For sure. I think the most like classic case I'll have is probably something that is something to do with Lyme and mold illness. That was definitely my like biggest elephants in the room, so to speak. But I'll get a lot of autoimmunity as well, a lot of gut or hormone imbalances. And then folks who just really align with this alternative approach who want to optimize and maybe they have like some sleep disturbances or they can't lose weight. or they have some neuropathy going on, like these more subtle things that maybe they have just a few things they want to, clean up a little bit. Those folks will come and have, an experience for themselves as well. But I would say probably the most classic case is like that, I've been everywhere. I don't know how to get better. Some folks know what's going on and some folks don't. But either way, our goal is to build them out an approach, again, tested against their nervous system to get them well.
Mm. You mentioned, yeah, Lyme mold. Mold is an interesting one because I also have a few clients who've had toxic mold exposure and have
Yeah.
a lot of neurological. Same for me. I was in this moldy house, and my main symptom was intense brain fog.
Yes.
Thankfully, it has cleared up a bit, but yeah, mold, and I think too in the South, as particularly, I feel like South
Charleston.
Carolina, mold is a really big issue. And I just hear how people talk about mold. They don't really take it so seriously. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's mold. It's just, it's everywhere. Yeah, but
Yes.
I don't think they're always putting together the kind of havoc it can wreak on you
Absolutely.
neurologically and also many different areas, so many different ways.
Yeah, mold is huge. And you're right, especially in this area. I know everybody who I've worked with that's come to me from this area has mold as a part of their journey some way, somehow, whether it's their main thing or it's, a side thing that kind of helped again overflow that bucket.
Yeah.
But so many like POTS cases, or for children like PANS pandas, mast cell activation syndrome, where somebody is like sensitive to everything. They can't go into a department store without getting a rash, like all of these really intense, we don't know what to do with you, medical refugee cases that are like, I feel like I can't leave my house, or I don't know what to eat, or else my body's just kind of having this like autoimmune attack. A lot of that will go back to looking at least a component of mycotoxin mold exposure and mycotoxin accumulation in the body, because it just totally wreaks havoc on your immune system. And so even some of the pediatric cases that we get, and it's like, oh my gosh, my kid's always sick. They must be picking it up at school. I'm going, no, they're probably going to a school building that's really moldy and their immune system's very suppressed. So we work on like building that up and making sure their home environment's very clean. And so, there's been a lot of cases, even with like pediatric, kiddos that get seizures, unfortunately, and there's a mold component to triggering off that nervous system, dysfunction. So there's a lot that can happen with that. And I think you're right. Folks go, oh, it's everywhere. No big deal. Just adapt. And sometimes depending on your own life experiences, you need a little bit of help adapting.
Yeah. And I've lived in, so I think back, I've lived in so many old houses that I'm sure had,
Yeah.
more damage.
Right.
It's hard to stay away from. And if you're
Absolutely.
able to detoxify those things, they build up,
Yes.
present as some odd symptom that you don't know what to do with, or nobody knows what to
Definitely.
do.
Yep.
I love it. Well, if you had one piece of advice that you would send out, if everybody could do one thing or recognize one thing or understand one thing, what would it be? I'm putting you that on the spot.
That's okay. No, this is a good one. I'm always like, oh, what's it going to be? I would say, I would love for everybody to know, or to at least like hear that their body was designed to heal when given the proper chance. So no matter where you're at, whatever you've been kind of like spoken over, oh, your body's attacking itself, or we just have to manage these symptoms, knowing that your body is like this perfectly beautifully designed machine, essentially, that has self-healing mechanisms. And if we can clear out the clutter, we can clear the interference of the communication systems of your body, you can heal. And that healing is wholeness amongst one's circumstances. So even if that's our goal, right? That's our new goal. Healing is possible for anybody.
Oh, Krista, I love that so much. That absolutely resonates with me and what I believe as well, that our body and brains are wholly designed to heal. And if they're not, that just means there's a roadblock in there, and we can, once we move that out of the way, your body and brain moves towards healing naturally, and that we have good bodies. We have good, there's no such thing as a bad brain or a bad body.
I love that one. Yeah.
Gosh, thank you so much. Well, how can people reach you if they're interested in working with you?
Absolutely. So you can go kind of get a feel for more my personality, or shoot me a message over on Instagram. It's going to be at SomaSonder, SomaSonder. You can shoot me an email, info@somasonder.org, or you can visit the website, which I believe will be linked
Yes, I'll
in
include
here.
that.
Yeah, so you can go, there's sample reports of, some of our appointment notes and all of that on there, just so that folks can get a feel of like, what am I actually getting myself into, or what am I going to get out of this? And so, yeah, if anybody needs to have some questions answered before working together as well, that's also an option, just to book a 20-minute complimentary call, and we can get to know each other a little bit more as well.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for your time. And I've loved getting to know what you do, and maybe I'll be working with you in the future too.
Oh, awesome. Well,
That'd be
thank
nice.
you so much. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for having me. It's been really lovely to get to know you and share the conversation.
absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. Hopefully we'll have